move it over to him now? Or wait for him to come on?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Just a real quick note about our speaker series before I introduce Coach. Our speaker, similar to our speakers last year, who traveled from East and West Coast, one came from Europe, they all use their own money, their own resources, and of course their own time to come talk to you. So that's a great value to have. Volunteerism is what our speakers are showing just by showing up. There's one reason why all of our speakers donate all that time to you, and that's because they believe in you and they believe in our next generation. And very grateful for having our speakers do that. And I hope you guys are grateful too. In fact, I know you will be, because I go brag to our community that we have the best student body in Kansas, because you're respectful, you're a great audience, and you ask great questions. Let's keep that reputation going and that trend today, okay? So Coach obviously doesn't need an introduction. If you know a smidgen about K-State football, or K-State, or Manhattan, you've heard the name Bill Snyder. If you know just a little bit about college football, you've heard the name Bill Snyder. If you know a lot about college football, you know he was the creator and had innovative ideas and made the game trend a whole different way. But I didn't ask Coach Snyder here to talk to you about football. I asked Coach here because I know he can relate, and I know he can connect, and I know he can help every single student in here, even if you've never touched a football or even played a sport, because he's going to talk to you about values. He's going to talk to you about traits that will make anybody successful no matter what path you choose. I know from watching Coach Snyder over the last decades and observing him that there are certain values I can connect with him with, and there's values and traits that I greatly respect. First of all, I'll just talk about two of them. There's many of them, because out of respect for Coach, I'm going to let him talk, of course. But his loyalty. Coach, very successful. Accomplishments, awards. There's no doubt that bigger universities, NFL, tried to entice him, probably with more money, more fame, better facilities, but he stayed loyal. He stayed loyal to his players, the university, the city of Manhattan, the state of Kansas, and rural America. And as a Kansan and a rural American, man, I greatly admire that about Coach. The second one is his humility. Award winner after award winner. He never sought a press release, a media release, a tweet. In fact, it's kind of well known that he tried to get out of most of those things. And then you'd also hear these great stories of how he did a random act of kindness for some random fan or some person he didn't even know. And he didn't do it because he was going to tweet about it. He didn't do it because there was a selfie at the end of the day for him. He did it because it's the right thing to do, to be generous. So, humility, he's a true workhorse. He's not a show horse. He doesn't do it for the attention. He did his job because it was his job, and he did random acts of kindness because it was the right thing to do. As you listen to him, listen to some of the values, internalize them, make them your own, and create your own path. Because if you do some of these values, there's no doubt you'll be successful. Please give a warm Panther welcome to Hall of Fame Coach Bill Snyder.
Thank you. Can you hear me all right? Yes. Back, everybody? Okay, well, I'm pleased to be here.
enjoy seeing smiling faces and young people. And I've been around youth and young people all my life. I'm 120 years old, and yet I still just get a joy of being around young people. Maybe it keeps you a little bit younger. But again, I'm honored to be here, honored to be asked. I've never had such an amazing introduction before, so I appreciate that a great deal. Can you put that on tape? I'm going to carry that around with me. There's so many things that we could visit about. It was mentioned about kind of the value system, etc. A lot of things that you heard about, and I'm quite certain that I wouldn't share with you anything that you haven't heard. I'm sure your parents, have been actively involved in trying to instill certain values in your life. So it perhaps will be somewhat redundant. But as I look around and I see, every individual, God made us all different, didn't He? I mean, we look around, nobody looks like us. Even twins don't look alike anymore. And it's kind of an amazing thing that you can put so many people on this earth, and every single one is different. But, what's interesting to me is there are certain things, just a very few, that we all have in common. We all have in common, each and every one of us. We might not always expose that, but it exists. And I think one of those things is the fact that each and every one of you, all of us, everyone on the face of the earth, desires to be successful. And we won't always say it. Maybe we don't feel real good about ourselves when we try to present ourselves a little bit differently. The true fact is we all want to succeed in whatever it is that happens to be important in your life. And success is probably one of a couple of things that I can think about that we all are going to be involved with or hope to be involved with. The other one is something that is thrust upon us, like it or not. And many of you can say, wait a minute, that's not right, that's not going to be me. But yes, it will be. Each and every one of us is or will be invested in leadership. Now, that might be leadership in a business, it might be leadership in a school, it might be leadership in your family, it might be leadership in your church, whatever the case may be. Mothers are leaders of children, but we all serve in a leadership capacity of some kind. As I said before, we all have a desire to be successful in our lives, spoken or not. And to me, the values of becoming successful, as well as the values of leadership, are pretty much one and the same. And I think it starts, as I believe anyway, with surrounding ourselves, you surrounding yourselves with wonderful, great people. Bringing people into your life that can help, want to help, will help you become successful. When you think about, you're saying, okay, Coach, what do you mean? What's success? Well, I think we all be success in terms of being a successful son, a successful daughter, and eventually a successful husband and wife, a successful mother, a successful father, and success in all areas of your life, whatever that case may be. And I think when you think about surrounding yourself with great people, wherever and whatever you desire to succeed at, it's probably something that you haven't done before in many cases. And so when we haven't done something and we desire to do it, we don't always know what are the steps that we take in order to succeed in that area. Therein lies the value of the people that you surround yourself with. People that have been there, done that, people that can give you direction and guidance in terms of how to succeed in those certain areas. And my encouragement is that you reach out and you find those people. Your administrators, all people in your life. That becomes significant in your life. I think the next thing is something that we all have, and that is priorities in our lives that eventually evolve into goals. All of you have goals. Can't tell me that you don't. I mean, there's things that you desire to achieve, things you desire to do. Those are your priorities and consequently your goals in life. And at the National Education Association, many years ago, 15 years ago or so, did a study. And they came up with a conclusion that yes, every single individual on the face of the earth, everybody that they could reach out to, establish goals in their lives. So we all do that. But the important thing is, one is that we select appropriate goals, and two, that we have a process about achieving those goals. How do we define our goals? And I think first and foremost it's really about your priorities. In other words, what's important to you? What's really important in your life? Your faith, your family, maybe being the best person, maybe being the best student, maybe becoming a whatever career field it is that you choose. But there are so many different things that define you and define your priorities. And from those priorities, you can define your goals. I'll tell you an exercise that when I was coaching, that I asked all of our players every single year to do. And it was related to establishing goals and defining how to achieve those goals in their lives. And I encourage you to think about it. I sent our players home with a little notebook. And I asked them for 10 nights consecutively, when they lay down to go to bed, that they take that notebook out and they think about what are the priorities, goals in my life that I really want to achieve. And on the first night, they'd write things down. Second night, they would go through and erase some and add some others. Third night, they'd do the same, etc., etc. So after 10 consecutive days, they would have really a pretty good idea. Achieving, or not achieving, but defining goals for yourself is not that thing about saying, hey, I want a $250,000 Lamborghini, or something like that. I mean, that just comes out of the air. It doesn't mean that can't be a goal, but by the same token, if you think about the really important things, and when you think about what those priorities and goals are in your life, and you do it over and over and over again, X number of consecutive evenings, or days, you eventually think through it well enough that you come up with a pretty substantial list of priorities / goals, things that are really important in your life. You know, who in here wouldn't want to do things that would allow them to achieve that which they desire to achieve? You know, deep down inside, you know, you may not want to express it publicly, but deep down inside, you want that. You want that. And once those priorities / goals were defined after that 10-day period, then I would ask them to go back and for 10 nights, they would take each one of those goals and they would write down what is it they need to do in order to achieve that particular goal. And it was 10 nights so that they may reach out to some other people that they brought into their lives, you know, that have achieved what they desire to achieve and gain some information about how they can achieve that particular goal. They do that for 10 nights. Now, the point being that defining and achieving maybe the most significant thing in your life, your goals, is a process that takes time. It's not something we do just out of the blue. Now, that being said, you know, there are certainly some things as you look at the steps needed to be taken to become successful in what you desire to succeed at. And I think one, very simply, is that desire and that commitment to find a way to become a little bit better in all those areas, all those priorities in your life every single day. In other words, find a way to improve every single day of your life. Once again, with our players. You know, we're talking about 19, 20, 21-year-old young men. Okay? And every day that I coach, they sat in an auditorium like this. And I addressed them every single day. And I would go through and I would say, John, you know, tell me one of your goals. John would tell me. I would say, John, you know, tell me what you're going to do in order to achieve that goal. How are you going to do it? In other words, again, process is important. Knowing how to do it. And part of that is getting better each day. And I would say, John, okay, what are you going to do today to improve in that area that is important to you? What steps are you going to take? What one thing can you do today? You know, if one of your priorities is your family, your parents, then, and I would say, what would you do today in order to improve at a relationship with your parents? And John would say, well, I could call my mom. Well, that's a step, isn't it? Sure it is. I could call my mom and tell her I love her. But it's a matter of every single day you find a way to get better and reach out to your priorities and your goals and what you want to achieve. Becoming a little bit better every single day of your life. And you know what? That is not a difficult task. That's not a difficult task. You can do it. You can certainly do it. Now, one of the things that it all takes is, I would say, perseverance. Perseverance. And you know, perseverance or not giving up, and as they say in athletics all the time, but nevertheless, it is a matter of that. Just persevering. I'm going to work at it, I'm going to work at it, I'm going to work at it. And when perseverance is when, you know, you attempt to do something, achieve something, and you can't quite achieve it. but you persevere through it and you keep working at it, and eventually you find a way to do it. There isn't any problem that is unstoppable. You know, yes, we run into roadblocks, do we not? You know, and unfortunately what they say about your age group, quick to give up. Quick to move on to something else. That was too hard, so I'm not going to do it anymore. Sad way to live life. Sad way. Because you can find a way to achieve that which you desire to achieve. And like I said, when you run into that roadblock, you keep working at it, pretty soon you'll get around the edge and you'll start forward again. Easy task? No. Rewarding? Most certainly. There is nothing that will make you feel any better than being able to achieve something that was difficult to come by in your life that was a good thing. Nothing. Finding that way every single day of your life to become a little bit better and having the perseverance to not give in. You know, we have 5 children, and our middle daughter, whose name is Meredith, Meredith, when she was just a little bit older than you, was a junior in high school, got in an automobile one day with a young lady and a fellow student, and they were driving someplace, and unfortunately the young lady had been drinking. My daughter, 45 years old today, never had a drink of alcohol in her life. So they get up on the highway, and this young lady is speeding, driving recklessly, goes off of the road, hits a tree head on. My daughter, Meredith, goes through the windshield, hits her head on the tree, breaks her neck. They did a surgery that evening. Dallas Presbyterian Hospital. Doctor came out of the surgery, walked up to me and said, "Coach, your daughter will never walk again for the rest of her life." Turned around and walked on. And I went over to see the doctor, and I tapped him on the shoulder, and I said, "Doctor, I don't mean to be disrespectful. My daughter will walk again. I know my daughter. What did I know? I knew her perseverance." 6 months later, with the aid of a cane and a helping hand, she walked out of Dallas Presbyterian Rehab Center. Today, she still walks crudely with the aid of a cane or a helping hand, but she walks. She owns and operates 3 businesses. She owns 80 acres of property that she works. She has 3 children, all boys, rugrats, run around like crazy. She manages that while her husband is unfortunately a football coach. But she did it because of the perseverance she had. You read in your history books, do you not, about Abraham Lincoln? We all know Abraham Lincoln for a lot of different reasons. But what I appreciate about Abraham Lincoln more than anything, I appreciate everything about him, but the most is his perseverance, his willingness to never, ever give up. Abraham Lincoln attempted public office, ran for public office on 8 consecutive occasions, and lost every single one of them. How many people would keep going, would keep trying to run for public office after he's lost 8 consecutive years? The 9th attempt, he became the president of our United States. That's perseverance. That's not giving up. And everyone was rewarded because of it. It becomes significant in our lives. hear me talk and you think about, or I think about expectations, what people expect of others. You, like all of us, have lived your life, particularly at a young age. You have lived your life with expectations, but they're expectations from what? From other people. What your parents expect of you, what your community expects of you, what your teachers expect of you, etc., etc. It's what everyone else expects of you, and you've lived with that since you were little too. But what is, and those are significant and important in your lives. But what is vital and important to you is your self-expectations. What do you expect of yourself? As I said a minute ago, your age group is perceived as one that doesn't expect very much. Like I say, I want this, I expect this, and all of a sudden I run into a roadblock and I turn around and go a different direction and say to heck with it. It becomes important in your lives to not, if you desire to succeed, is to not place limitations on your abilities to achieve success. And unfortunately, so many do. No limitations. I can achieve that which I desire to achieve if indeed I have a process about how to do it. And I have the perseverance to carry out that process. As I said a minute ago, age group of instant self-gratification, right? Want it now, etc., etc. Well, if you go through this process the right way and you establish those steps that you can take to achieve the goal that you desire to achieve, you think about it, you take one small step each day. One small step, If I want to get here, I have to take a lot of steps to get there. But on one given day, I take a step towards that goal. That has allowed me to be successful that day. And even for those with that instant self-gratification, they still have achieved something. And a step by step. Because too often we say, I want to do this, I want to be this, I want to achieve this. As I've said before, we expect to be there right now. Take one step and we're there. And it doesn't happen that way. I am stretched of imagination. Now, that's a lot of stuff that is all kind of the same thing. Define your priorities. Establish your goals from those priorities. Establish the steps that you need to take in order to achieve those goals. Have the perseverance to take steps to achieve those goals every single day of your life and to become better every single day of your life without giving up and having the perseverance to do so. Now, those things being said, I would ask you to do this. I'd ask you tonight when you go to bed that you might consider what I mentioned a moment ago. Being able to begin that process, begin writing down what you really want to achieve in your life. Because let me tell you, when you achieve that which you desire to achieve, and you look back on your time right now, you're going to say, I am so happy that I did this, that I took the steps to become successful and to achieve that which I desire to achieve. I encourage you to do that. Now, I'll tell you what, I don't know how much time we have left, but for a little bit of time here, if you have any questions that you would like to ask, I would be more than happy to address them. If not, we'll end up, you have to go back to class. Anyone?
Any questions? You can use the mic.
Hi, Coach Snyder. Big fan. I just want to ask, what's one thing that you contribute most of your success to?
Well, in reality, my mother. To this day, my mother's passed, died of cancer at the age of 77. My mother is, has been, always will be the most significant individual in my life. My mother and father were divorced when I was a child, young child, much younger than you. She raised me. She worked hard. You come from a rural area, you have a pretty good idea of what hard work is all about when you look at your family. My mother worked 12 hours a day, 6 days a week at a department store. My mother moved us to an apartment, which I was raised in a second-story apartment room, and a one-room apartment, not one bedroom, one room. I was raised. Went all the way through my high school years. I had a Murphy bed. I don't know if you know what that is, but it comes out of the wall, folds down. That was my bedroom. I put all my pictures and notes and banners, etc., inside there. My mother's bed was a cot, which was outside the door of our apartment that I would bring in every day, every night, and unfold for her. That was what we lived in until I graduated from high school. And my mother never complained about it. She lived down there so she didn't have to, because she never drove a car in her life, never had a driver's license for her life. So she didn't want to spend the money on a streetcar bus to get to work and back. So we moved to that apartment downtown. So I was raised in downtown St. Joseph, Missouri. So my mother was 4 foot 9 inches tall. She never weighed 100 pounds in her life. Strongest person, not female, strongest person I've ever known in my life. And I have so much respect for her and what she taught me. You can go online, and if you just looked up 16 Wildcat goals for success, some of you have probably read about them already. They're just values: commitment, responsibility, discipline, hard work, etc. I learned all those things from my mother. And you learn those things from your family as well. She was significant in my life. And she gave me the guidance and the direction to move on and try to do things the right way. It's important. I appreciate that question. Anything else? Yes, young lady.
Sam, I'll come to you. Coach, that's Dalton Owen. He's got a lot of offers, but he's trying to get a K-State offer, so if you can help him. He's got a lot of Jayhawk offers and some other offers, but he can help him. That'd be great, Coach.
Hi, Coach Snyder. My name is Sam. My mom was my biggest idol, too. I was just going to ask you, what is, in your opinion, your biggest achievement in life?
Biggest achievement? I think the most significant thing that I have done in my life, at least I'll speak in terms of football, it has, and probably outside of that as well, it is being able to have an impact on young people that have gone through our program and see our young people become successful in life. And there are so many of them. I did, and I stayed You know, and I've got boxes upon boxes upon boxes, but I get letters, cards, etc., emails from players that have been in our program over the past, 900 years, and I just love, and they basically all say the same thing, maybe in different ways. Coach, I didn't always get it. I didn't always want to work that hard. I didn't always want to do this and be this responsible, etc. But I get it now, and it has made a difference in my life, and I have become successful because of it. And that's what makes me feel better about anything in my life. Thank you, dear.
Thank you, Coach. That's Sam. She's trying to go to the K-State marching band, so if you want to mention that to Dr. Trace, that'd be great.
Trace is one of my favorite friends, and I most certainly will.
I've already met him.
Any other questions? Oh.
Hi, Coach. My name is Andrew Henderson, and a few years ago, I actually sent you a letter, and it was a playbook that I made when I was about 7 or 8, and you actually responded, sent me back a letter, signed the autograph, and because of that, I want to become a coach like you, and I just wanted to know where, why, and how you started coaching.
Well, I started coaching. It's interesting. I kind of knew that I wanted to be, or I say wanted to be, I knew that I was going to be a coach when I was probably 7, 8 years old. And how that came about, as I told you, my mother worked long, hard hours. And she knew that I had all that free time after school until she came home later in the evening. So she marched me down. We had a YMCA 6 blocks from our house in downtown St. Joe. She took me over to the YMCA and introduced me to a fellow over there. And she said, my son will be here every day at such and such a time, and he will leave at such and such a time. And if he fails to make it on time, then you call me, and I will have him here in a heartbeat. And that was true. So I joined the YMCA, and I went every day after school. And the YMCA was active in sports, all kinds of sports. And so I just participated when I was at a very young age. And so I continued to do that throughout my elementary school, junior high school, and college, etc. And when I began doing that, I just labored under an assumption, if you will. I wasn't a very smart youngster, but I labored under the assumption that that's what I would do. I would be involved in athletics. Well, I realized after a while I wasn't very good at it. I wouldn't, I played every sport. I was bad at all of them. But I knew that sports was going to be my passion. And so the next step was coaching. And I actually coached. I was a competitive swimmer. I enjoyed swimming, so I swam all over the country and with that YMCA group. But I began coaching when I was still in high school. I was a sophomore in high school, and I coached the St. Joseph Country Club swim team, which traveled around the state of Missouri. So I got my start there. I went to William Jewell College, was where I eventually got my degree. And William Jewell, it's a long one. You could applaud me because I'm keeping you after the next class. But I was saying, I went to William Jewell College. William Jewell College didn't have, I was on the baseball team and the football team, but they didn't have swim teams. So I addressed one of the instructors there that taught water safety, and together we started the William Jewell College swim team, and which they still have. Anyway, I've gone way too far. Let me say last thing. I enjoy visiting with you, I hope there is something from what was said that you can take into your life and perhaps enhance your life a little bit. But I encourage you, the last thing is to, make sure once again that you do show respect and say thank you to those people that have been so meaningful in your life. Starting with your parents, your leaders here in school, and others that have been impactful in your life. Wish you all well. God bless. Thank you so much.
On behalf of the student body, I want to thank you for sacrificing your time to come and talk with us, and to also present you with your own honorary letter.
I'm a letterman. How about that?
You guys are dismissed to your next hour. Have a good day.